5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new edition of The Gringo Show. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're thinking, Dan, where's the Bancomer building? You're not on your normal studio on Paseo de la Reforma. That is correct. We are live from New York City with a beautiful view of Weehawken, New Jersey. Listen, we didn't have a budget to get the Manhattan skyline. Low budget show here. There's absolutely no justification why we're here to do the show. AMLO isn't here, although I did see a few gray Volkswagen Ventos on the street today. Maybe it was, and he was here to see Cats, or maybe a screening of Les Miserables. One more day till transformation. Wait, no more transformation, but I'm the king. Sounds like a sequel. Maybe I'm here to find former President Enrique Peña Nieto in a Tony Cafe in Soho, canoodling with a hot blonde and ask him, how do you feel that the party you once led only won 69 seats? Maybe I'm here just to buy cool US clothes so I can go home, wear them, and prove to all my friends that I'm a cool son of a bitch. Abercrombie, see this? I went to the US last week. Who knows? But what a week. Final election results are still coming in, but it looks like the ruling party of Morena has been kicked out of the city and sent back to provincia. Mijo, it's time to go home. But Ma, I had big dreams of a super transformation of the country. I was going to be a global star. Mijo, you're broke and just not talented enough. We're going to talk about Morena losing its absolute majority in the federal Congress and losing a number of Mexico City's municipalities, but showing strong wins in a number of states outside the capital in our full coverage of the Mexican midterm elections. Also, we'll talk about U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to Mexico City and discuss Sunday night's Nations Cup final between the U.S. and Mexico. Lots to get to, so let's get going. Our top story tonight, Kamala Harris came to Mexico. What do you want me to say? Nothing happened except this.
Presidente Kamala, mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Presidente Kamala. Buddy, I know you're into these religious things and all these idols and things to get COVID away. But first, she's not Jewish. For a guy whose name sounds like a place I would change my muffler, I think you should have done a better job of remembering the Vice President of the United States' name. Let's practice this together. I'm going to borrow a line from right-wing conspiracy theorists. I think they should be asking Allah to come. Come, Allah. Kamala, Kamala. Besides their plane arrivals, pomp and circumstance, motorcades, some posturing, I hear Kamala and AMLO had an arm wrestling and beer drinking contest, and the winner was kept a secret. I made a call to Julian Assange to see if he knew, and he didn't either. Really, the Gringo Show news team scoured the internet and couldn't find anything about this visit. I know why she went to Mexico. She didn't want to hurt AMLO's feelings, like he'd be jealous and shit. Oh, I guess Guatemala gave you good tacos al pastor, no? Actually, the only thing that was really reported on was what she didn't do. People were mad that she didn't travel to the border this time, and I wouldn't either. I checked for any sales in the McAllen Mall, and there are none right now. It's the only reason anyone who has their own airplane goes to the border. But really, she was not happy about the criticism because this trip wasn't about that.
I've been to the border before. I will go again. But when I'm in Guatemala, dealing with root causes, I think we should have a conversation about what's going on in Guatemala.
She also got criticized for some remarks she made at a conference in Guatemala because she was telling people not to come.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come.
No, and she got arguments from the left that she wasn't being sensitive enough. Why is she telling people not to come? Because it's not fun up there. It's hard to get across. The conditions are bad. She's just giving a warning. Can you give her a break? I mean, I'm mad at her because I invited her to have brisket at Pinche Gringo Barbecue and I got no response. So I'm pissed too. I understand. But on Sunday, Mexico and the U.S. faced off in the final of the inaugural Nations Cup, the tournament that absolutely not necessarily, because there's something called the Gold Cup, which is essentially the same thing. So why does North America need a duplicate tournament? And even the design of the tournament pretty much ensured that the two dominant teams, Mexico and the United States, would play each other. It wasn't expected Belize or Trinidad and Tobago were going to make it. I wasn't sure if I was watching a soccer game or an Emmy-nominated telenovela. Just a lot of drama from start to finish, a lot of kicking and screaming. Yeah, around the 90th minute when the U.S. goalie made a goal kick, the crowd shouted that traditional chant that happens in Mexico that has gone on for many years. But the CONCACAF has been trying to root out homophobia in the tournament. So the referee just stopped the game, shrugged his shoulder and said, hey, I'm going to wait until you stop. I'm just going to wait. And they actually waited 5 minutes with the time still running on the clock in the game. And if the crowd would continue, they threatened to stop the match and have the match played behind closed doors the following day. They were not messing around. Now listen, I want to eradicate homophobia just as much as everybody. And whatever we can do to make people feel safe is important. But we also have to stop taking the American value of taking everything literally and applying it to another country where words have much less meaning. I'm sure when the opposing goal kicker kicks the ball, fans aren't making a comment about the person's sexual preference. They're just saying, hey, Guillermo Ochoa, with your fancy curly locks and your handsome face, we hate you because you played for Club America. I mean, think about it. This is the same place where people call their 70-something-year-old waiter Joven, or a guy who loves cheeseburgers Flaco, or even worse, calling a human Pollo. Just because he hasn't worked out his legs in a while, people give a shit for the word pinche gringo. That's offensive. They say, oh, that's so offensive. Yeah, but you invaded Mexico like 100 times. So I think we need to take a bigger breath about this and maybe pretend that they're saying photo. It'd be better. But fans were going nuts, throwing bottles of whatever on the players on the field. And one fan decided to disrupt the CBS broadcast of the game.
Right. You see the celebrations, silence in the crowd, and he just gets caught with something there. Right there.
The game was marred by a lot of fighting by the two sides, and there were 2 penalty kicks, one for each side. First, it was the United States.
Pulisic! Buries it in the upper 90! In a match in which the U.S.
And then something bound to happen, just something was created, and Mexico got its own penalty kick.
Time a double from this spot. And he's denied! Horvath!
Unfortunately, it didn't go great for the Mexico team. The U.S. won the game 3-2, winning its first Nations Cup, which caused 0 Americans to give any shit about what just happened in that game or that tournament. Nobody cared. So let's go on to our main story tonight. What a lot of people cared about, the 2021 Mexico midterm elections. It was an interesting election. I guess you can call it a tale of 2 countries, 2 empires, 2 whatever. Because what happened in Mexico City was very different than what happened outside of Mexico City. First, let's stroke my ego a little bit. I tried to predict the results. Let's see how I did. All right, I am predicting that Morena and its partners will win 270 seats in the lower house. Now, that was last Thursday, and Morena and its partners won, drumroll, 279 seats in the national legislature. I predicted 270. Damn you, those 9 legislators who won. You ruined everything. Morena was able to secure a simple majority to pass legislation, but they lost their absolute majority to try to change the Constitution in the new term. The party Movimiento Ciudadano was supposed to be hanging with Morena, but after the election, they were like, mira, did I say I was their friend? Did you hear me say I was their friend? Because I didn't say that. Did you? Because we're not friends. We're kind of acquaintances, and they basically signaled their independence. Then on Tuesday, in his morning rant at the breakfast table, his press conference, AMLO said he was open to making a new alliance with his old party and now his mortal enemy, the PRI.
Se podría lograr un acuerdo con una parte de legisladores del PRI.
He's like, hey, can you guys be my friend again? Now, what I got wrong was what happened outside of Mexico City. Morena gained, winning 11 of the 15 governorships that were up for grabs, including Evelyn Salgado Pineda, the daughter of Felix Salgado Macedonio, who was removed from his candidature for failure to report correctly his campaign finance and for kind of being a sleazebag. The party made surprise wins in San Luis Potosí and the desert oasis of lame Instagram stars of Baja California Sur. Polls suggested big wins for the opposition party. If those states would have went the other way, I would have hit my prediction and lauded as the Mexican Nostradamus. I think that would be pretty badass, like Dan Nostradamus, MX, my Instagram handle or something. So Morena solidified its hold on many states outside the capital, but because the city represents 25% of the entire electorate, it has major implications for the national picture. People don't trust the news media nor what the government says. They vote on what they see. And imagine 5 million people who take the Mexico City Metro every day seeing a bridge collapse. It had more of an effect on the election than anyone could expect, including the fact that the city was ravaged by the COVID pandemic. More on the Mexico City results in a bit. But before we talk about that, we have to talk about a story you won't believe. And I think it calls for our segment, No Manches. No Manches. The newspaper El Universal reported this week that the Mexican government last week was in talks with the football club Cruz Azul to change the lights on the famous Paseo de la Reforma in the Ángel de Independencia to blue if they had won. Cruz Azul captured their first title in 23 years after having lost in the final 6 consecutive times. Well, here's the clincher. The government decided, reportedly, not to turn the color to blue because it is the same color of the opposition party, the PAN. With fear that, I don't know, would sway the election in some way. Oh, I'm on the street. Blue, blue, vote for PAN, blue. The government also banned baby boys, captured all the bluebirds, and mandated that all blue-eyed people should shut their eyes in public until the election is over. No manches. Alfredo Adame, the actor-turned-candidate for federal congressman we have been following that ran his campaign by telling people to do the what with their moms, well, he lost. I guess voters thought that doing the nasty with the woman who gave birth to them wasn't going to solve issues plaguing the Tlalpan community, such as traffic and healthcare. In addition, Paquita del Barrio, otherwise known as Mexico's Taylor Swift, lost her bid for local council in Veracruz. One voter said, "Why would I vote for her? She called me a rata de dos patas, but I only have one arm." Exit polls show that she lost to perros y hipocritas, quien escriben muchos cheques en blanco, by a lot. Yeah, you guys don't. We had a tough crowd over here, guys. You know, these are songs that Paquita de Barrio sang about men. All right, whatever. Mexican gold medalist and high diver Romel Pacheco won his race in Mérida with 31% of the vote by showing his six-pack to horny old retirees. Oh, ooh. If only an old lady was actually the OXXO kid. That would be great. And Belinda's brother is still going to be Belinda's brother after losing his bid for Congress. Hey, man, cheer up. You're still Belinda's brother. That's so cool. And finally, we at The Gringo Show would like to congratulate Samuel Garcia on his win for the governorship of the northern state of Nuevo León. We'd like to send him, on behalf of Pinche Gringo Barbecue, a rack of ribs on us for his victory, as long as he keeps his legs closed. But again, Mexico City's results were not reflective of what happened in other parts of the country. The city largely rejected Morena, capturing 11 of the 16 municipalities, forcing head of government Claudia Sheinbaum to have to work with the majority of her jurisdiction being run by the opposition party. She also lost the majority in the city's legislature and will find an entirely different terrain to work with in the final 3 years of her term. This will potentially have an effect in national politics, as she was expected to be the frontrunner for president in 2024. But I'm wondering how people felt about the whole thing. We asked Gringo Show correspondent Julian Valois to go out into the city to figure this out. Take a look.
Hello everyone, Julian Valois here, reporting from Roma Sur. Now last Sunday, Mexico held elections whose results were largely divided. So I'm gonna go walk around the neighborhood today to get an idea of what people feel about those results. Arturo, ¿cómo reaccionaste a los resultados de la elección, las elecciones del domingo?
En general, en lo que respecta a la CDMX, sí me sorprendió, pero bueno, es el castigo también a lo mejor a lo del accidente en el metro o algunas otras cuestiones sociales que pues, sí le pegó a Morena, ¿no? Y sí, por eso perdió varias alcaldías.
Hay un poco de problemas con los que no quisieron votar, pero los resultados creo que van a ser los que se estaban esperando, porque pues mucha gente ya no está muy de acuerdo en lo que se está haciendo por parte del gobierno.
Pues yo soy de Coajimalpa y de hecho queríamos que ganara el alcalde Rubalcaba, que fue el que se quedó, porque él realmente sí ha apoyado mucho a la gente.
Ok, pues
estamos contentos.
Feliz con, con este resultado.
Sí.
Y
yo soy de Los Reyes, alguien ganó creo el PRI allá, pues la verdad no había quien irle, pero pues ni modo.
Okay. Esta parte de la pandemia, con cualquiera de los gobiernos que estuviera, sería el mismo problema, ¿no? No podemos medirlo realmente.
Y esperemos que la situación vaya normalizándose y que todos estén muy a gusto con los resultados, que no haya problemas, eso es lo principal.
Hay que tener fe.
Exactamente.
Sí. So on this assignment, I did collect a few reactions, some positive, some negatives, but there were many people who were like, do not film me, I do not want to talk about politics, and can't we all understand them? So anyways, this is a little bit of a reaction from the streets of Roma Sur. Back to you, Dan.
All right, thanks, Julian, for your report. For more election analysis, we now have our special guest on the show, Sebastián de Lara, head of the Space Side Group for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, and returning to our show, Duncan Wood, Vice President of the Wilson Center. Thank you both for joining us. It's really great to see you. Duncan, I want to start with you. I know that you were an observer at the polls, and it seems like the big winner of this whole thing was the National Election Institute. Supposedly, and I want you to explain this to us too, because they were saying 99% of the casillas were installed, and that was a huge victory for the INE. Tell us about your observation during this election and what you thought of the process.
Hey, Dan. Hi, Sebastian. Good to see you. First of all, Dan, I got to challenge you on something. I'm going to call bullshit on you, okay? You said earlier on that the whole puto thing in the Mexican soccer games is something that comes from the United States. It's like values from outside. It's not. This is a conversation within Mexico. This is something that a lot of people feel very strongly about. They find it highly offensive. And honestly, you're touching upon an issue which is really, really important right now when you look at what's happening over in Europe. The English soccer team the national team is taking a knee against racism, and they're getting abuse from their fans or from one section of their fans. And it's one of those value judgments, I think, that we really do have to enforce. So, and I know there's a lot of humor on your show, but it's really not about values being transposed from outside. This is about something there's been a serious conversation about it in Mexico for a number of years now. And the Mexican Soccer Federation themselves have been trying to improve this situation. So there's that, okay? Now to the elections.
Yeah.
I agree.
You can call bullshit on me. I mean, no one checks this, so I'd like to have a check and a challenge, and you make a good point.
There you go.
All right, well, let's go back to the election and talk to me about observing and being in the and what you saw there.
So listen, as a foreigner who's followed Mexico for, nigh on 30 years, I've heard all the stories about Mexican elections and about the creation of a democratic culture in the country, and the fact that elections are run by citizens. And I'd always sort of listened to it and kind of, I said, yeah, sure, whatever. That sounds very nice. But I'd never actually been inside the casillas, the polling stations. And once you go in there and you see how they're run, that obviously there's an enormous amount of investment from the National Elections Authority, the Institute. There's an investment of resources and training, etc. But it is actually run by the citizens. And it's an extraordinary thing to see because you hear about it, but you don't actually understand it until you go in there. And when you see it, it's like, the people from the neighborhood. You've got somebody who is the presidente or presidenta. The 5 casillas that I went to, 4 of them had a female president that was running everything. And they set the rules locally. So in some of them, we were allowed to take photographs. In other ones, said, no, we don't want you to take photographs. But there's this feeling within the polling stations that everybody knows each other. They're all from the neighborhood. People are saying hello to each other, So there's a feeling of trust and community. You've got the observers from the parties standing there who are making sure that there's no funny business. And we were lucky enough at the end of the day to see the rapid count down in Tlalpan, in a polling station only 2 blocks away from AMLO's house. And it's an amazing thing. It's so simple. The votes the ballots have been put into clear plastic boxes, okay? When it comes time to open them, they hold up the box and say, we're opening this box for Diputaciones Federales, for the federal deputies. They open it up and they take out the votes one by one. They lay them on a sheet that's been prepared on the table, and then they just begin to add them up. And it's such a simple process. There's no early voting. There's no mail-in voting. There's no hanging chads. There's no, question with hacking the system. And it works beautifully now. And of course, there are anomalies and there are problems and there's fraud throughout the country. But honestly, what I saw, I asked every single party representative in all 5 of the polling stations we went to if they had seen any problems or anything they weren't happy with. And they all said no. It was great. And I had fully expected that some people from Morena were going to say, look, you know what, we're not happy with the way this is going. But no, nobody had a complaint. That put AMLO in a very interesting position on Monday morning, because if he was to come out and say this was a fraudulent election, he's not only going against Lorenzo Cordova, head of the INE, or against the INE itself, he's going against more than 1 million Mexicans who ran their own election. And that's an extraordinary thing. It's a testament to the strength of Mexican democracy.
Absolutely. But also people are saying that maybe the election itself was clean, but some of the things that were happening before the election, some violations of the rules, that maybe after the election something will happen, but it did have an effect on the outcome. Seb, can you tell us a little bit more about this? There were the things that the Green Party were paying influencers 2 million pesos each to say good things about the Green Party, and there were some other irregularities that were happening before the election.
Absolutely. First of all, Dan, thanks so much for inviting me. Duncan, it's great to be a co-invitee on a show with you. First of all, I think that it's very important to also mention that this has been an extremely violent electoral process. Throughout the campaign season, we saw more than 85 electoral crimes where candidates were murdered, they were kidnapped, they were attacked, there was an attempt of murder. So things were pretty rough. And as you mentioned, also there was an attempt, particularly by the Green Party, to manipulate the voting. There is a period where you cannot really do anything regarding the elections. You can't call out for a vote. All candidates have to stay quiet. And basically, it's a 4-day period. And during those 4 days, the Green Party clearly violated it, pretending not to, and paying influencers or known influencers to say that they are going to vote for the Green Party. And apparently it worked, because the Green Party will have somewhere around 44 seats in the lower house of the National Congress. So it wasn't too much of a bad strategy if you see it that way. However, it was completely illegal. I think that the INE will take matters into their own hands, whether they will fine them or there will be other type of repercussions. It really depends on what the law is established there. I do think, and I want to really say and stress the fact that the INE is the true winner of this election, in the sense that AMLO in the past was trying to undermine the INE, was trying to manipulate everyone into thinking that the INE was biased and was participating with the opposition, has constantly attacked INE's president, Lorenzo Córdoba. And for a pretty good while, it seemed that his followers were sort of believing it. And now we're seeing that, like Duncan mentioned, that, once a million or so people participate in the election, everyone sees how clean it is. It's really impossible to go against the INE and say that INE causes any type of problem within Mexico. They are really the true guarantors of democracy in our country.
And that's a critically important issue, Sebastian, that you raised, because, of course, we've got the consulta pública, the referendum coming up in 2022, and the INE will play a role in that. And, of course, the presidential elections in 2024. So actually making sure that we have a level playing field for the parties and the candidates ahead of time is critically important. It looks like you and me are in a conversation on our own right now. Dan seems to have disappeared. So, hey, let's just talk.
Exactly.
I agree with you. I think that the INE is a big winner. The Verde is a big winner because of the power they now wield.
He has a simple majority. Seb,
He's back.
Can go with you. And
we lost you for a bit, Dan.
We got you all. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So you have he doesn't have an absolute majority anymore. He has a simple majority. And how is that going to change the dynamic in the government for the next 3 years? His fourth transformation doesn't seem like he's going to make such a transformation because of now having a larger opposition Congress. Duncan, what do you think is going to happen?
So it's funny, you disappeared for a while from the screen there, Dan. So Sebastian and I we're talking about this. We were talking about this issue exactly, and I was just going into a conversation about the Green Party and how they do wield so much power right now. They're kind of the kingmaker in this equation, as they've been on so many occasions in recent memory. And this is it's an interesting position. They seem to be the survivors. They seem to be able to adapt. But what we're looking at in terms of the constitutional reform question is that AMLO is now scrambling, as you showed in that clip earlier on. I mean, he's talking about co-opting members of the PRI so that he can get that. But even if he does achieve that, if he's able to bring enough members of the PRI over to his side, he's still stuck in a really difficult position, which is that, let's say he gets the constitutional reform through the Chamber of Deputies, which looks very unlikely, he still has to deal with the Senate. And there are, he lacks 7 votes. And for the past 3 years, the opposition in the Senate has banded together, provided a cohesive, united front against him. I was talking with a senior senator the other day about this and was told, look, the fact is that we've had our backs against the wall. We've all been under immense pressure, but it's really bound us together. And that helped us to campaign together in this election. And the opinion from this particular senator was that cooperation will continue. So we'll see in the months ahead. But certainly, the pressure has been there. The pressure will continue. And one thing I will say is that even if AMLO can't do things through a constitutional majority or constitutional reform, he's going to try in many other ways. He's committed to his goals.
Right. I wonder how this coalition is going to be fractured. I mean, the Partido Verde doesn't have an entire history of being or doing the greatest things, right? And who knows how much it could collapse at one point, maybe, and swing to the other opposition. Frank, Seb, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that if we consider that since the Fox administration, the Verde has always been allied to the party in government, no? So I mean, it's quite evident that they do it because they need to, and that's the way they survive. I also think something that's very important, and putting on to what Duncan was saying, is that, for example, also another blocker that AMLO would have for any constitutional reform are the state legislatures. So after it's approved by the lower and upper house, it goes on to the state legislatures that require 2/3 of the country's vote. So that would also mean that things would become a lot more difficult, because even though Morena has 15 governorships at the moment. Well, we'll have 15 governorships due to the elections. It still makes things a lot more difficult. And I think that, and again, agree with Duncan, he's going to try to do his best to undermine every single autonomous agency. For example, we're seeing now that he's sending Herrera to the Mexican Central Bank, which is kind of an odd decision in my view. We're seeing decisions that always try to undermine autonomous agencies, and I'm sure he's going to continue doing that. But it makes things a lot more difficult, and it allows institutions like the INE to take a deep breath and say, okay, we're still going to be around for the next elections and hopefully more. So I think that that's positive. It's a positive outcome.
And Dan, if I can jump in here, I mean, I think we're seeing a change of attitude from AMLO. He's reassessing his strategy and his tactics right now. I mean, today, you know, he's called for this meeting with senior Mexican business people that he's been attacking publicly recently, like Claudio X Gonzalez. And that willingness now to reach out suggests that AMLO recognizes that the way he's been doing things is not going to work in the second half of his mandate, when he's lost legitimacy, he's lost support. And maybe it's a little bit of a wake-up call. Now, the man himself is a survivor. Never count AMLO out. He's an extraordinary politician. And so he will be able to duck and dive and weave in the ring and be able to get things done, no doubt about it. But he's now going to have to be a lot more collaborative than he was before.
Absolutely. Listen, we have a minute left, but I have to ask this question. What did you think about AMLO calling her Kamala? Yeah, there were some agreements to do new things in the future, to have roundtables and meetings, but you know, all joking aside, there wasn't a lot of substance. That I don't even know what people were expecting from this meeting. What are you thinking? And is there going to be a shift after this election? Are there going to changes? What's going on with the U.S.-Mexico relationship? Duncan?
So, listen, I think that I didn't have great expectations for this meeting, but it turns out there was a hell of a lot of work going on behind the scenes for months. I sat down with folks in the Mexican government yesterday, talking to them about this. What they've laid out is, it's not a roadmap. It's more of a sort of an institutional framework for the relationship. And that reflects the priorities of the Biden administration, which is, we all know that migration is there. But in addition to the migration cooperation, we've got an institutionalized relationship for trade and investment, which is now the high-level economic dialogue, which is being reborn. We've got a cabinet-level security dialogue, which is a way to institutionalize that conversation between the two governments at the highest level on public security. You've got the United States dedicating significant resources to helping Mexico implement its labor laws, which is an issue that matters a great deal to the folks here in Washington, particularly on the Democrat side of the aisle. So actually, I mean, I look at it and it opens up new possibilities. But there's two things that I will say. One is, we have to see whether or not the two governments are really committed to this, and whether they're willing to put not their money, but their political capital where their mouths are. And secondly, AMLO himself. We all know that AMLO doesn't like institutional approaches. You know, Biden is a charismatic politician. He believes in personal relationships, but in fact, he operates through institutional channels.
Right.
AMLO is not like that. So unless AMLO tells his cabinet that they should go along with this, it's not going to work. And so that's what we're going to see. The proof of it will be in the pudding, and the pudding is going to be seen in the second half of this year. See whether we make any real advances, whether the meetings that we have on trade and security and migration actually bear any fruit.
Absolutely. Okay, we're out of time, but Duncan said it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your insight. Thanks for calling me out on the Puto story.
I'll always do it, Dan. Don't worry.
Thanks to the both of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you guys back on the show again. Thanks so much.
All right.
All right. That does it for this edition of the Gringo Show. I hope you enjoyed being with us live from New York. The only thing I can offer you is a delicious slice of New York pizza digitally. Yes, New York is famous for its pizza. It's better than Chicago's deep dish. It's better than Felix, Cancino, Vecchio Forno, even though they're really good. But I'm sorry, New York wins. It's been a pleasure being with you tonight. I hope to give a big shout out to our New York-based crew, Malik, Devin, Anvo, for taking the time to make this show look great on location here in New York. If you like our show, please follow us on Facebook Live or our YouTube channel at The Gringo Show. Take a week off next week and then go straight through our summer break. So we'll see you back in 2 weeks with more news and information pertaining to the connection between the United States and Mexico. Until then, stay good, stay cool. See you in a bit.
Pinche gringo, Mexico is laughing thanks to you. We like to watch you dance salsa and listen to your bad Spanish too. We like to watch you almost die